As most of you have probably heard by now, President Biden pardoned his son Hunter over the weekend, and if you haven't heard about it, here's a quick summary of what happened, courtesy of the AP. Headline: Biden pardons his son Hunter despite previous pledges not to. This is by Zeke Miller, Alana Durkin-Richer, and Colleen Long. President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter, sparing the younger Biden a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions, and reversing his past promises not to use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family. The Democratic president had previously said he would not pardon his son or commute his sentence after convictions in the two cases in Delaware and California. The move on Sunday night comes weeks before Hunter Biden was set to receive his punishment after his trial conviction in the gun case and guilty plea on tax charges, and less than 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump is set to return to the White House. And then from a bit further down in that AP article, it continues, in a statement released Sunday evening, Biden said, "I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice." And then there's another quote from Biden's statement from a bit further on in the AP article. "The charges in his case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election," Biden said in his statement. "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision," Biden added, claiming he made the decision this weekend. As you might imagine, not everybody's super thrilled with President Biden over this, and most of the people who are not super thrilled are Republicans. Here's a little bit on that from NBC News. Headline: Republicans fume after Biden pardons his son Hunter Biden. This reporting by Megan Lebowitz. GOP lawmakers began publicly fuming shortly after President Joe Biden announced that he was pardoning his son Hunter Biden. President-elect Donald Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung, reacted to the announcement without naming the president or his son. "The failed witch hunts against President Trump have proven that the Democrat-controlled DOJ and other radical prosecutors are guilty of weaponizing the justice system," Chung said in a statement. "That system of justice must be fixed and due process must be restored for all Americans, which is exactly what President Trump will do as he returns to the White House with an overwhelming mandate from the American people," he continued. The overwhelming mandate part is completely made up. Trump did legitimately win the election, but it was hardly a landslide, and it was hardly evidence of a sweeping mandate for Trump from the American people. And when Stephen Chung says there that the justice system needs to be fixed and due process needs to be restored, that just means that they need to fix it so that they get away with their crimes, but Democrats don't get away with theirs. And of course, the big reaction that everybody was interested in when this story broke was, what's Trump himself going to say? Who gives a shit what Stephen Chung has to say? What does Trump himself have to say? And of course, he took to his Twitter knockoff social media site, Truth Social, and he posted this about the Hunter Biden pardon. "Does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the January 6 hostages who have now been imprisoned for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice," Trump said on Truth Social. So yeah, like I said, that's what they mean when Trump and his people talk about, we're going to fix the justice system to restore due process. That it means their people get away with their shit and their opponents don't get away with their shit. And actually, in a lot of cases, it probably means their opponents will get at least investigated for stuff that there's no basis to investigate them for in the first place, while there are people who have actually committed provable crimes. They'll get away with it. That's what they mean by, well, we're going to fix all this. We're going to fix the justice system. But it's not just Republicans, including Trump, who have been complaining about President Biden pardoning Hunter Biden. Some Democrats have also sounded off and have not been super thrilled with President Biden. This is another article from the AP headline, "Some Democrats are frustrated over Joe Biden reversing course and pardoning his son Hunter." This article is by Bill Barrow. "Already reeling from their November defeats, Democrats are now grappling with President Joe Biden's pardoning of his son for federal crimes after the party spent years slamming Donald Trump as a threat to democracy who disregarded the law. Then from a little bit farther down in the article, we get some specific reactions from Democrats. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation. Colorado Governor Jared Polis wrote of Biden on the social media platform X, which, as I always remind you, X is what fascists call Twitter. Here's another reaction from a Democrat from a little further down in the article. Representative Greg Stanton, Democrat of Arizona, said on X, "This wasn't a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed felonies and was convicted by a jury of his peers." And then the article goes on to talk about how not all Democrats who have spoken publicly about Biden's pardon of his son have had negative things to say about it, but among the Democrats who have criticized Biden for pardoning Hunter, the general consensus seems to be that it's inconsistent with our values, it's inconsistent with the case that the party has made against Trump and against the Republicans, that they're the lawless ones, they're the ones who will disregard the norms and disregard the institutions and abuse the system in their favor, and we're supposed to be above that. And if Hunter Biden was convicted of crimes or pled guilty to crimes in a court of law, then he should be punished and allowed to be sentenced and punished just the same as any other defendant in his position. I think the best response that I have read so far to Biden pardoning Hunter was by Josh Marshall, published on Talking Points memo, and it's very brief. I'm just going to read the whole thing to you, and I don't mind doing that because Josh Marshall, in addition to publishing this with no paywall on Talking Points memo, he also tweeted a screen cap of the entire thing, so I don't think he'll mind if I just read it out to you. Anyway, this is what Josh Marshall wrote on Talking Points memo about the pardon. Over the past couple weeks, the thought of President Biden pardoning his son entered my head a few times. I tossed it around. Good idea or bad idea? I can see it both ways. I still can. But I am fine with his decision. I'm glad he did it. Biden learned the right lesson. No one gives a fuck about norms. It's unquestionably true that Hunter Biden wouldn't be in this position if not for his dad. That's basically the justification Biden gave. And he's right. It may sound angry or cynical to say no one gives a fuck, but I mean it both in a general way and in this particular way. The reason for Biden not to do this was to allow his son to remain collateral damage of the GOP war against his presidency and to leave him in the hands of the Trump DOJ for at least the next 4 years, all to make a point of principle about being better, different, more righteous, more norm-honoring than Donald Trump. Truly. No one gives a fuck. If anything, that logic I just laid out sounds like one of those fastidious, hyper-process-oriented, and baroque bits of reasoning that have, of late, left Democrats mesmerized while the real world is passing them by. Either you know the difference, or you don't. This doesn't shift the balance in anyone's head. Where Josh Marshall has landed with the Biden pardon is more or less where I come down on it. I can't find it in me to get worked up about it, to get upset about it, to be mad at Biden for it. I suppose I do disapprove theoretically, but that's because I'm uncomfortable with the pardon power just in general, no matter who the president might happen to be. And I'm uncomfortable with executive pardons, period, because many state governors have a pardon power as well. And I'm just not sure if I think that's a good idea. There's something kingly about it that just doesn't agree with me. The idea that the judicial system can work its way through a case and the verdict can be reached and the judge can deliver the sentence, and that is theoretically the way things are supposed to work in this country. Everybody gets due process, everybody gets a fair trial, and then the chief executive in whatever jurisdiction this is, be they a governor or a president or whoever, can just step in and say, nope, never mind. I have decided I'm using my executive power to nullify the verdict of the courts. There's just something about that doesn't sit right with me. And I know there are definitely arguments for it, and I know there are historical examples where you can point to and say this was used in a righteous way. I'm not denying that, but just as a overall, in general, in principle, I'm just not sure I'm okay with executive pardon, presidential pardon. But all that being said, I'm not going to be mad at Joe Biden for pardoning his son. As the piece I just read from Talking Points memo points out, to not pardon him would be to leave him at the mercy of a Trump-controlled justice system, would leave his fate in the hands of a Trump-controlled justice system that is sworn publicly, openly, proudly to be on a quest for vengeance against anyone that they perceive as having thwarted them in the past or that is a threat to them in the present or the future. So just purely as a thinking of Joe Biden as a father, if he had the power to spare his son from that, I have no problem with that at all. I'm not mad at him about that. And this idea that, well, he should have allowed him to serve his sentence because he should have respected the norms. And now that Biden has pardoned his son, now that opens up the potential for Trump to do this when he takes office, as though that potential was not there already. Do you really think if Trump takes office and he does actually pardon the January 6th insurrectionists, do you really think that he wouldn't have done that if Joe Biden had not pardoned Hunter? You really think if Trump pardons the insurrectionists, you really think that he wasn't just always going to do that? If Trump pardons himself, and by the way, get ready for that. Don't be surprised when that happens. If Trump pardons himself, is there anybody who seriously believes that he wouldn't have done that if Biden had not pardoned Hunter? I'm not saying that the norms that Trump and the Republican Party are disregarding and obliterating in some cases aren't important and don't matter. And I'm not saying that we as Democrats should take violating those norms or disregarding those norms lightly, whether we're doing it or someone else is doing it. But I am saying that for me personally, I only have so much attention and I only have so much outrage to give. And knowing what we are in for the next 2 to 4 years with the Republicans in charge of Congress and Trump holding the White House, I just don't have it in me to spend the outrage on this. Joe Biden pardoned his son. Maybe he shouldn't have done it. Maybe it doesn't look good. Maybe Republicans will use it. Maybe Trump will use it as an excuse for why he will go on to pardon some people in his coming administration. You know what? I don't care what excuses Trump uses. And I really wish that my fellow Democrats would stop giving a shit how Republicans are going to respond to shit they say and do. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that because if we do that, then Republicans in a few years are going to use that as an excuse to do something worse. It's not our responsibility what Republicans do. You know what would make it really hard for Republicans to do that? If they lost elections to us. If you are a Democrat, if you're a Democratic politician, and you are concerned about some step that you think a Democrat or a group of Democrats should be taking right now, because you think, well, if we do that now, then that opens the door for Republicans to do this. And stop worrying about what they're going to do. Worry about what you're going to do. And one of the things you should be worried about, if you're so worried about what they're going to do, how are you going to win elections against them so they can't do it? How about that? How about you don't take them being in charge as a given? How about you don't take them running the show as and an unavoidable future. How about you remember that we have elections in this country, that every so often the people decide who they want to be in charge, who they want to represent them in government, and you take those as opportunities to take back the power that those Republicans have taken from you. And then, if you hold enough of that power, it doesn't matter what they would do. It doesn't matter stop worrying about whether or not Republicans are going to get mad at you for doing the right thing. And this goes beyond President Biden pardoning his son. There's lots of examples from the past 4 and 8 and 12 and even further back than that, years, of Democrats, clutching their pearls and clutching their hands and going, oh, gee, should we do that? I don't know. The Republicans might get mad at us if we do that. And I've had it up to here with that. Who gives a shit what Republicans are going to think? You're not Republicans, you're Democrats. You do what you need to do and what you think is right. And if they don't like it, that probably means that you are doing the right thing, because I don't know if you notice, but they're horrible fucking people. And what they want to do to this country and the direction they want to take this country is going to fuck up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. So who gives a shit what they think? And honestly, who gives a shit what they think about President Biden pardoning his son? I don't fucking care. If you voted for Donald Trump, if you work for Donald Trump, if you're a member of the United States Senate and you're intending to vote for Donald Trump's cabinet nominees, I don't give a fuck what you think about President Biden pardoning his son. You don't have standing, as far as I'm concerned, to voice an opinion on it. I don't give a fuck. You're going to come in and say, oh, President Biden pardoning his son, what a miscarriage of justice. How hypocritical. How unfair. It just shows how the system is rigged and blah, blah. You support Donald Trump. You are going to enable him to carry out his agenda. You are going to prop him up. You helped him get elected. And you're going to talk to me and people on my side about how we should be upset that President Biden pardoned his son. Fuck you. Fuck you. And fuck anybody on our side who is going through the same thing, who is going through the same hand-wringing over, oh, geez, I don't know, this doesn't look good for us. We got a long 4 years ahead of us, folks. We got a long 4 years ahead of us. And if we want to get through it and come out on the other side of it in a position to win so that the next 4 years is only the next 4 years, then we need to fucking screw our heads on as a party and as an electorate. And that means we're going to have to ration our rage and remember that some shit is worth getting angry about and some shit isn't. And personally, I'm happy for President Biden entering his I don't give a fuck phase. I only kind of wish for the sake of all of us that he had gotten there a little sooner.